Our focus in this video is going to be conducting quality research. This is going to be finding the information and the research in order to write the paper that's going to go along with your learning project. There's going to be three primary areas that you're going to find information. You can get information from books, people, and the internet. As you're doing your research, there's going to be three things that you're looking at before you even start taking notes for your paper. You're going to look for the quality of information. So does it have enough detail, and does it seem accurate? If it seems absolutely ridiculous, that might be a good sign that it is absolutely ridiculous and shouldn't be used. You also want to look at the quality of the source. Who wrote it? Is it someone who's actually qualified to be writing on this topic, or was this written by some random person who you have no idea what their qualifications, if any, are? Finally, you want to look at the timeliness. Is this information still applicable today? Some things haven't changed much, like the Great Depression, while other things, especially science-related, have likely changed a great deal in the past 30 years. So depending on your topic, the age of the source can also play a role in whether or not it's good information for you to be using. Books are going to be a main source, and we'll be spending 3 days next week in the library to give you an opportunity to look for books. There are some books that are going to be of questionable credibility and accuracy, but most books are going to be just fine, especially those that have been screened and selected by the library. They're carefully edited, and because of that, books can generally be trusted, where other sources like people and the internet may be of questionable quality. Depending on your topic, you might not be able to find much detailed information in the library. While we have many books on many topics, some of you may find there's not much detail, only a couple lines, or you might find that we don't have the book on that topic at all. In which case then we'll be looking for other sources to help you. But I would like all of you to try finding something in a book. One thing that you do need to be sure that you check is, as I was just mentioning on the previous slide, you need to make sure that you know how old the book is. So look on the copyright on the inside of the book and make sure that the information is not out of date. See me if you need help figuring out if the information is still relevant based on the age of the source. People are another place that you can get your information. You need to make sure that the person is trustworthy, though. And not only are they trustworthy, you need to make sure that they are qualified to provide that information. So even if you find a person who's generally pretty honest, they might not be qualified to be talking on that topic. They might have gotten their information incorrectly, and so even if they mean well, you could be getting false information. So if you're going to use a person as a source, you need to make sure that this person has direct personal experience or is some sort of expert on whichever topic you choose. You should also consider how old the information is. If the knowledge is from a long time ago, depending on your topic, it may or may not still be accurate. Things change, and so we need to make sure that our information is timely and accurate for that. Internet sources are another place where a lot of you are going to be drawn to in order to find the information that you need. This can be a good thing or a bad thing. We've all probably seen very many great sources on the internet, but likewise there can be just as many really bad sources on the internet. One that I want to caution you against right away is anything that has answers in the title. If you can provide an answer for it, it's not a good source to use. So once you get to a website that is of possible quality, you need to run some tests to see, is this a website I can use? So you're going to check to see who the author is. This can often be found at the bottom of the page. Look down at the bottom, and oftentimes they'll say copyright, that's the C with the circle around it, and then have a person's name. There's oftentimes also an about section on some websites, so it might give you information about the author. In this case, then you need to make sure that the author's credible. If you're writing about nuclear physics and some high school kids writing about it, this probably is not going to be the most credible source. So make sure that you know not only the name of the author, but also what qualifies them to be an expert on this topic. We want to try and find experts as our sources because they have the most information and the most reliable information. If you can't find the author, look to see if there's an organization or company that runs the website. Sometimes companies will pay people to write the information for them, but they're the ones who endorse it and own the copyright on it. So this isn't just the name of the website. Make sure that you can find an author or credible organization who owns it. Then what you need to do is, once you've found that this does have an author or some sort of credible organization, if it passes that step, then you can go on to check the age. If it doesn't pass that step, you should probably look for a new source. If it does, though, now you want to see, how old is this information? One way that you can find how old the information is you can look up at the date up at the top of the page. This will often be near or right beneath the title. You'll see this a lot on news articles and blog posts. So for example, if you go to CNN, usually right by the article will be the date. More commonly, you're going to see a date down at the bottom of the page. This will often be listed in one of two ways. The first way would be last updated, and then you provide the date. The other option is the date would be located at the bottom and included general copyright, so you won't know that it was necessarily last updated on this specific date, but it provides a copyright, either copyright and a range of dates, so 2000 to 2012, or it might just have a singular date, like copyright 2012. So while we don't know when the actual time this information was last updated, the person or organization who took the time to copyright this website is continuing to stand by the quality. So we can make the assumption that at that point it's quite likely to be a decent source. Now, of course, some sources will pass this test but still not be a quality website. And same with the previous test of checking to make sure that there was an author or an organization sponsoring it. But these are generally pretty good ways to screen out some websites that will and will not work. Always, if you have questions, make sure you ask me or another adult to help you figure out if this is a good website. Your classmates can also be good helps. So if you can't find the date on the page you're getting your information from, or on the main page of the site, so also check the main page if you're looking at a subpage, it's often a sign that the website is not the best source of information. And at this point, you should probably ditch this site and look for something else. But again, if you still think that this is a really good website, check with me and I'll help you decide if it is a good one or not. So if it's passed this test for having credible author and organization and gives a date for the information, then and only then do you start looking at the information and start taking notes. I can't even begin to tell you how many times I've found kids who have found a website that has information on it. They've taken all their notes only to discover that it wasn't a quality website and they therefore can't use that information. So save yourself a lot of time and effort. Do the quick check for the author or organization and the date. That'll take you a minute, and then get started looking at the quality of the information. So before you start taking your notes, though, there's a few more things I'd like you to look at. Does the information make sense? So actually read what they're writing, see if it makes sense, or does something just seem wrong with it? In which case, you should probably find a new source. Same with if the information is well written. If this is a really credible person and a good website, the information should be pretty well written. That means that there's not many or none at all spelling and grammatical errors, punctuation errors, capitalization errors, and so on. If there's a lot of errors in it, it shows that this isn't someone who's really taking the time to put their information together well, and therefore probably is not the best source. Now, that doesn't mean one mistake you should absolutely discount this, but check the quality of the presentation, not just the information. And just like with a book, is there enough information? You might find that you only have a line or two, in which case, with all the information that's available on the internet, you might as well go find another source where you can get more information than this one. So if the website passes all of these requirements, then you can start taking notes. So in order to take notes, you want to make sure that you always write down where you got the information. It's very important that you give credit to the people you got the information from. To prevent yourself from having to write it multiple times, because it can get a bit tedious, you might find it better to number your sources. So after the first time, you'll only have to refer to your source by a number. So you'll notice on the example, I wrote down all the information I need about the website I got the article from. But I also wrote a 1 up in the corner, indicating that's my first source. Any future use of that information from that source, all I'll have to do is put a number 1 on it, and then I know exactly where I got that information from without having to write it over and over and over again. When taking notes, it's also important to avoid writing incomplete sentences. Using phrases and fragments is going to help you prevent plagiarism and help you make sure your essay is written in your own words. Remember, plagiarism is when, whether you intentionally do it or not, you take someone else's words and you use them as your own. It's really hard to do that if you don't have complete sentences. So it's an easy way for you to make sure that you're protecting yourself as you take your notes. Because oftentimes you'll take notes and then you won't remember, were those your words or were those the words of the author. So if you write them in fragments, then there's no mistaking it, because then you have to be the one to put it back together in complete sentences. So that way it helps you avoid that risk and helps you get a better grade, because remember, if you plagiarize, you get a 0 on your assignment. Thank you for reviewing these notes. If you need to go over them again, make sure that you check back through them. I will also be posting a PDF copy of the notes on Moodle, so you can access just the slides and not all of the words as well if you need to. And make sure that you come to class on Tuesday ready to start researching.